Hi guys, welcome to my channel. If you have ever tried modeling a room or a real object, you know that getting proportions right can be challenging and time consuming, but it's crucial to your build. My approach has been to use either LiDAR scanning or photogrammetry. LiDAR is expensive and photogrammetry is time consuming. But now there's another option that is both cheap and fast, and when I say cheap, I mean free. An app called display.land, available for iOS or Android, iPhone X and up, and Android devices with Face ID login, and also on the new iPad Pro. All you do is point your device at an object or inside a space and start walking around. As you do so, you will see virtual points appear on surfaces. Once you capture enough data, click upload and their servers will process the data, and in a few minutes you will see your scan. Now the best part about display.land is they don't hide anything behind the paywall. The 3D data is available completely free. Click share and email a link of the scan to yourself. You can see the scan in a browser and download it. I made a scan of a wheelbarrow that is a pretty challenging model. It looks simple, but the proportions are not the easiest thing to get right, and usually you'd have to do a lot of measurements from ground up and try to get different angles. But by doing a simple scan, you can then send it to yourself, and you click the download button and you can download an OBJ 3D mesh. Now the mesh will also come with textures. I created a project called wheelbarrow. I downloaded the OBJ into the data folder and I placed the texture into the source images folder. So let's import the OBJ. So here's the model. So now let's bring in the texture. And there it is. You can set the lighting to use flat lighting. This will get rid of any of the lighting or the shading that Maya will try to add. Very simple, very quick, and the model is actually pretty good quality. So how do we use this to model? Well, it's actually really easy. All we need to do is first align the model, and also we only need to use the wheelbarrow. We don't need anything else. Now we need to line this up, so I'm going to center the pivot and go from the top view and just line this up like this. So the next thing I want to do is I want to get scale right, because you don't want to send the model up the pipeline without having the right scale. So this is the wheelbarrow that we're going to be modeling, and if you scroll down, usually if you look at the product pages, there's some measurements, and we have the product width is 25.5 inches and the size is for the wheel is 16 inches. And I don't know what that means, what that is in centimeters, but if we do a little Google search, we should be able to get that. So 16 inches in centimeters is that. So if we go back to our model, I'm going to make a cube and set this cube to that much. So we're going to go for a real world scale. Reset. Scale this up. I'm going to take this cube, move the pivot down, and snap it here at the bottom of the grid like this. Now what I need to do is scale the wheelbarrow until that wheel is 16 inches, or just about. So now that we have our rough scale, if you don't want to work in such large scales, because you can see our centimeters, our units are really small because we're going to real world scale. What you can do for large objects is scale it to decimeters. So if you freeze transformations and set the scale to 0.1, you're now in decimeter scale. And this is what it would be if it was in decimeters. And usually I like to work in decimeters, so this is fine. Alright, so let's start modeling. Now the first thing I want to do is I want to create this curve, right? Now the problem is I don't want to model at an angle. That is never a good way to go about it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that everything is frozen and reset. And then I'm going to take my rotation and just rotate it like this temporarily. That. This will give me a nice straight line across the top, so when I look at the shape here from the top, I know what I need to match. Let's bring the grid back, it's useful. Now I'm going to use just curves make a circle. I'm going to bring it up over the wheelbarrow. Like that. I'm going to go into display, edit NURBS, edit points, so I can see those edit points there. And just line this up where I think it should be. I'm going to go a little bit on the inside like that. Okay. Then I'm going to duplicate, move it over, and then scale this. So if I use the EP curve tool, I can hold V, snap these edit points, like that. Bring this back. Now, I want to take these curves, bring them down, and line them up here like this, and then I want to also rotate them in the direction in the same way that the wheelbarrow reference geo is rotated. So the easiest way to do that is I'm going to select all the curves here, clear history, I'm going to group them. We can delete the extra groups, take this group and just drag it using the middle mouse button into the geometry for the wheelbarrow reference, like that. So now it's inside, see? That means if I select this wheelbarrow geo and then set the rotation back to 0, the curve will go with it. And then we can take the curve and just middle mouse drag it, just an empty space like this. And now it's aligned to the wheelbarrow at the proper angle. So, you know, without having this geometry here, it would be really hard to match the curves this way. But by having it, it's much easier to line everything up. So now what we need to do is, you can see there's a base here, right? The bottom here. So I'm going to select this again, and now I'm going to rotate it in the other direction and line the bottom up like that. There. I'm going to hide this group for a sec. And we need to create the bottom here. So now this I'm going to group, size of the pivot, and then drag it into the geometry for the wheelbarrow, and then set this rotation back to 0. And now we can take this out, just drag it out. Don't need the empty groups. And now you can see we have two curve sets for the top and bottom, and they're lined up perfectly, just the way we need it. Now let's loft them. So that's going to be easy. So now the problem is I can loft from this edge to this one, and this one to this one, but I can't loft from this one to this one. I can't go all the way around. So instead, what we need to do is we need to detach this. So shift, space, curve, detach. I'm going to delete this. So what I want to do is I want to be able to loft between these curves, but I'll have this in the middle, and I don't want to create a triangle. So instead of a triangle, I'm going to go into right click, select curve point, and then just drag a point along here, like that should be good enough. And spacebar, curves, and click detach. So now what this will give me is we have a curve here and here that we can loft, and then this one to this one. The problem is these are two halves, so we need to select this curve, and then we need to rebuild it. So if we go into curves, click rebuild, what rebuild will let us do is it will let us add an edit point in the middle, apply. So now if I click display, NURBS, edit points, you can see there's a point now in the middle, which there wasn't one before. I can then select it, go to curves, and detach. So now let's loft. we can select these polygons, combine, merge vertices, and soften edge. Clear history, we can duplicate and make sure our pivot is here at the center, or we can also freeze and reset, and then just scale in -z, put -1 in scale Z, select both, combine, merge, soften edge. You can also use the mirror command, but there's too many settings to play with, so I like to just do it this way. Okay, now we need to close the base off. It's very easy. Just click fill hole, which is under mesh, fill hole. You just need to select an edge, and then we can use the multi-cut tool. I'm going to add a couple of loops here. Now we can freeze, reset, duplicate, set this to -1, then combine, merge, soften edge. Delete the middle here, and then do one at a time. So if we bevel this, now when you do this, you need to make sure the number of segments is the same on both sides. So I'm going to increase the fraction until I'm happy with the subdivision. I think that's good. Segments, I'm going to increase the segments until these faces are kind of square. So I think 7 works. Now we'll do the same to this side. Now we need to make sure we remember the bevel amount. So that segments is 7. If I select this one, same thing. Segments 7, and then we'll match the curvature here, like that. We need to select this edge here and just deselect these edges, like that. Same here. You can also, once you make a loop, control click this edge and then control double click this edge. It will deselect the shortest edge. And then we'll just do a bridge like that. And now for this edge here, I'm going to do edit edge flow, which will just smooth this out a little bit. I don't like keeping poles like this, and also this one is a little messed up. So I'm going to show you the way I like to clean this up. I'm going to delete half, but now I want to remove the pole here. So, but the way I'm going to do this is I'm going to use the multi-cut tool. I'm going to find the middle, which is this edge here, I believe. Yeah. I'm going to go out this far. I think that's how far I have to go. We'll see. Yep, that worked. So I don't know exactly how far I need to go, so I usually just try and like do it, and if it doesn't work, I'll go to the next one. And if it's too far, then I have to go back one. And what I'm trying to get here is that when I make these edges here, I want to go from this loop out along this outer edge, right? And I want to find the outermost curvature that will give me one quad here, like this. See if I can then delete these guys and double click these edge loops and then control delete. I'll have quads like this. So you can see the way this one looks and then the way this one looks. See this star pattern? Don't have that here. Nice and smooth. Okay, so let's do it to the front. Nice and smooth. Now you do see this hard line here, and this is weird because this line is actually created because we don't have an extra loop here. So it's like, it's kind of counterintuitive. You'd think that if I put a loop here, this will make it sharper, but it actually will smooth this out. So you can see before, you can see that sharp edge here. But if I use insert edge loop tool, relative distance, autocomplete is on. I'm just going to add one here like this, then one here like that. I would like to add it in the middle, but it's going to create a problem here, so we'll just leave that one off. We'll have to live with it. Press 3, and you can see that hard edge is now gone. It's nice and smooth now. Same on this side. Okay, duplicate, flip to the other side, combine, merge, soften edge. Now, I'm going to double click this edge here, and we're going to create an overhang, a rounded overhang. And it's actually very easy to do. I'm going to click extrude, and I usually like to use thickness for this, but sometimes thickness causes like issues. It didn't cause an issue this time, so this is perfect. So if you hold Control and then left click and drag on thickness, you can get like a nice perfect extrusion. And what I'm looking for is trying to match how far this rounded edge goes. Something like this. Maybe a little more, like that. I'm going to click extrude again, and then thickness again, this time down, and then extrude again. You can just press G to redo it, and then thickness again and in. Now the thing is, it's a square. I want it to be rounded, a lot more rounded than this, because I don't want to rely on smoothing, plus it's not going to give me the best result. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this edge and this edge, shift right click, bevel. We need segments, just keep it at 1, and then take the fraction and just move it until this is round. And then I'm going to add a loop here like that. Double click this edge, shift right click, slide edge tool, and then just middle drag like this. And now we have a nice rounded edge. Now same thing, see when I press 3 to smooth, you see how this actually gets like a hard edge here, which is also weird because you want this to be round, and you think that if I just, the less spans I have, the more rounded it will be, but it's kind of counterintuitive. If we add an edge loop here, this now is more rounded than it was before. I'm going to hide these curves, bring back our reference geo, and just compare. Okay, so now I want to make sure that this is extruded so that we have thickness to the geometry. Now the best way to do that is to extrude, of course, but if I just extrude now, I'm going to create a couple problems later. So instead I'm going to do UVs first. So open up the UV editor, see, connect this, and let's turn this on. Now you can see our UVs look pretty bad right now. So what we're going to do is do an automatic projection. Actually, we'll just do a planar projection. So let's go to UV and planar from Y-axis and hit apply like that. There it is. Now what we need to do is just unwrap it. So shift, right click, unfold, unfold. There. And it's a little weird looking, so let's click optimize. You can click optimize a bunch of times, so let's just try and smooth this out a little bit. It's good enough for what we need to do with this. I'm going to just rotate it, try and line up to a grid unit, and place it in 0 to 1. Now it's also hard to tell where 0 to 1 is because the grid is so divided. So we just need to go into View, go to Grid, Grid Options, set this to 0.5 and hit Apply. Now we can see the center, which is that. And then scale this, close. Now we can extrude. And we'll do thickness. Now, one thing you should check with thickness, sometimes when you extrude with thickness, you'll get points flying away, like I do right here. I don't know why this happens, but if this is happening, that means we can't use thickness. So just make sure you set thickness back to 0, and instead we're going to use local translate. Local translate is not as smart as thickness, but thickness also acts kind of stupid sometimes. So if we go from the side view, you just want to see that as you're extruding, that you're not overlapping. See how these are going through each other? So you want to extrude without overlapping that way. So like that's like the max that we can do. Our normals are flipped, so just click reverse, soften edge. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I want to separate the top and bottom in UV space. So I'm going to double click this edge, this one. Right? Go back into UV view, and you can see we still have the same UVs here. But if I press this button, you can see it's purple because we have red and blue on top of each other for front and back. So with those edges selected, I can shift right click and click cut. Then I can double click on one of the UVs. So just right click or UV, double click on the UV, and then move it over. And the one that's red, we're just going to go into transform and click. Make sure U is selected and just click flip like that. That's going to flip it. Now we have, that's the inside and that's the outside. And that's it. Now let's quickly make these wooden pieces, these handles, because getting that angle to line up like this is very difficult without reference, and you would have to take a lot of measurements to get this right. But because we have this geometry here, it's much easier. Snap this. Now I can rotate the wheelbarrow, but I don't even have to for this because it's a pretty simple model. I can just rotate the cube like that. Get the thickness right. And you can see the texture is also very helpful. So we can see exactly, I'm going to set the movement to object, so we can see exactly where those edges of that geometry are. Okay, so I'm going to go up to here, like this, and then I'm going to select this face here, click extrude, and just select the Z arrow, extrude it out. If we look here, you can see one's longer than the other, so I'm going to use that one as my guide. Let's add a loop first, because we need to add one here, like that. Then I can select this face and this one, and then use transform. When you click it, it's going to give you a manipulator that you can then use to move this up or down in normal space. I'm just going to eyeball it until this looks like it's a square. Like that. That looks great. Now, if I select these edges here, shift, bevel, and do that until it is beveled. Now I want to add a segment because I want an edge in the middle. So we'll just keep doing this until it's rounded. Now the best way to do this is to go all the way like this, but I want an extra edge, so I'm going to add another segment like this. This will give us a perfect cylinder, and then just click merge, and these extra edges that it made we don't need. Now what we need to do here is use 3 edge loops, this way, okay, and these 3 that I just added, when I click scale, just scale them out to the corner like this. Now I can manually connect these edges here, but instead if I just delete it, these faces here, I can just use bridge, and when the bridge doesn't match, use bridge offset until you get a match like that. And then we'll add a loop here and here. We have a nice transition here. Okay. Now to get it to the other side, I don't want to lose these translations, so I'm going to Control G, which will group it, duplicate, and then set the group in negative space. There we go. So the rest is pretty easy. Cylinder, the other little bits, very easy to do. And if you want to see me finish this wheelbarrow completely, let me know in the comments. And I hope you like this video. Check out the app, it's completely free. I'll see you guys next time.